Yoga class, huh? Tell me, Vanessa, do they always end in the weight room with them?
Nick, it's not what it looks like.
I should get going. No, Brad, stay. You wanted her so bad. Stand here and own it.
Nick.
The morning I discovered my wife was planning to destroy me, I was standing in my kitchen wearing yesterday's boxers and holding a cup of coffee that tasted like betrayal. Not that I knew it was betrayal yet. At that point, it just tasted like the cheap stuff Vanessa had started buying instead of the good Colombian blend we used to share on Sunday mornings. My name is Nick Caldwell. I'm 39 years old and I design buildings for a living. Ironic, considering my own life was about to collapse faster than a house of cards in a hurricane, but I'm getting ahead of myself. "Dad, Mom's being weird again," Emily said, sliding into the kitchen with that 12-year-old wisdom that cut straight through adult nonsense. My oldest daughter had Vanessa's dark hair but my skeptical eyes, a combination that made her dangerously perceptive. "Weird how?" I asked, though I'd been noticing the same thing for weeks. Vanessa had been distant, secretive, always on her phone with hushed conversations that stopped the moment I walked into a room. She keeps giggling when she texts. And she's been working out with Uncle Brad like every day. Uncle Brad. That was Bradley Thomas, my wife's so-called best friend since college. 6'2" of perfectly sculpted personal trainer who'd never met a mirror he didn't love, or a married woman he wouldn't flirt with. The fact that my 8-year-old Sophie called him Uncle Brad had always bothered me, but Vanessa insisted he was like family. "Maybe she's just trying to get in shape," I said, though the explanation felt hollow even to me. Emily gave me a look that said she wasn't buying it either. "Dad, she bought new underwear. The fancy kind. And she hides it from you, out of the mouths of babes." I ruffled Emily's hair and tried to ignore the cold knot forming in my stomach. "Go get ready for school, kiddo." As Emily headed upstairs, I heard Vanessa's voice drifting from our bedroom, low and intimate. She was on the phone again, and she definitely wasn't talking to her boss about quarterly sales reports. I know. He doesn't suspect anything. Tonight at the gym after his session ends. We need to be more careful. The coffee mug slipped from my hand, shattering against the kitchen tile. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot, and Vanessa's voice immediately went silent upstairs. "Nick? You okay down there?" she called, but I could hear the guilt in her tone. "Just clumsy," I called back, kneeling to pick up the pieces. As I swept up the ceramic shards, I couldn't shake the feeling that my marriage was breaking apart just as easily. Vanessa appeared in the kitchen 5 minutes later, dressed in her new workout clothes, tight leggings and a sports bra that left little to the imagination. She'd always been beautiful, with those striking green eyes and the kind of figure that turned heads wherever we went. But lately, she'd been dressing like she was trying to turn specific heads. "I'm meeting Brad at the gym," she announced, not quite meeting my eyes. "We're working on a new routine." "I bet you are," I muttered, but she was already grabbing her keys and heading for the garage. The house felt empty after she left, despite Sophie's chatter over breakfast and Emily's typical preteen drama about what to wear to school. I went through the motions of being a dad, packing lunches, signing permission slips, making sure backpacks had homework, but my mind kept circling back to that phone conversation. After dropping the girls at school, I sat in my car in the parking lot and stared at my phone. I could call Brad's gym, see if Vanessa was really there. But what would that prove? That my wife was working out with another man. That wasn't a crime. But the way she'd been acting lately, the secretiveness, the new clothes, the constant texting, the way she flinched when I touched her, it all pointed to something I wasn't ready to face. I drove to my office at Morrison & Associates Architecture, where I spent the morning trying to focus on blueprints for a new shopping center. But every time I looked at the structural plans, all I could think about was how foundations could crack under pressure, how even the strongest buildings could collapse if the support beams were compromised. My phone buzzed around noon. A text from Vanessa. "Working late tonight. Brad's helping me with a special project. Don't wait up. A special project. Right." I called Derek, my best friend since high school, and the only person who'd tell me the truth even when I didn't want to hear it. Derek worked construction, had hands like sandpaper, and a mouth that could strip paint, but he was loyal as a bloodhound and twice as persistent. "Your wife's cheating on you," he said without preamble when I told him about Vanessa's behavior. "I don't know that for sure. Nick, buddy, I love you like a brother, but you're denser than concrete sometimes. She's working out with another guy every day, buying sexy underwear and working late on special projects. What more evidence do you need? A notarized confession?" Derek had a point, but I wasn't ready to admit it. Maybe I'm just being paranoid. Or maybe you're finally paying attention. Look, you want to know for sure? Follow her tonight. See what this special project really is. The idea made my stomach churn, but Derek was right. I needed to know the truth, even if it destroyed everything I thought I knew about my life. That evening, I told the girls I had to run an errand and drove to Brad's gym. It was one of those upscale fitness centers with floor-to-ceiling windows and enough chrome to blind a pilot. I parked across the street where I could see inside but stay hidden in the shadows. At first, I didn't see anything suspicious. Vanessa was on a treadmill. Brad was spotting someone on the bench press. Normal gym stuff. I started to feel foolish for spying on my own wife. Then Brad's last client left, and everything changed. Vanessa hopped off the treadmill and practically skipped over to Brad. He wrapped her in a hug that lasted way too long, his hands sliding down to rest on her lower back. She looked up at him with an expression I hadn't seen in years, pure adoration mixed with desire. They moved to a corner of the gym where the windows were tinted, but I could still make out their silhouettes. Brad had his hands on Vanessa's waist, pulling her close. She was running her fingers through his hair. They were kissing like teenagers, all hands and desperate need. I sat in my car, watching my wife make out with another man, and felt something die inside me. Not just love, though that was definitely bleeding out, but trust, hope, the basic belief that the person you married would at least have the decency to end things before starting something new. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. Project running late. Might not be home until after midnight. I laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. She was texting me lies while kissing another man 20 feet away. The sheer audacity of it was almost impressive. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing with questions and scenarios, and the growing realization that my marriage was over. But as I pulled into my driveway, I felt something else creeping in alongside the hurt and betrayal. Anger. Cold, calculating anger. If Vanessa wanted to play games, I could play too. But she was about to learn that I was much better at strategy than she thought. The next morning, Vanessa came home at 6 a.m. with her hair messed up and her workout clothes wrinkled. She claimed she'd fallen asleep in her car in the gym parking lot after her training session ran late. "I didn't want to wake you by coming in so late," she said, not meeting my eyes as she headed straight for the shower. I wanted to call her out right then, to demand the truth and have the fight that would end our marriage. But something held me back. Maybe it was the memory of her hands in Brad's hair or the way she'd lied so easily over text. Maybe it was just that I wasn't ready to blow up my daughter's lives based on one night of surveillance. Or maybe I was already planning my revenge and didn't know it yet. "How was your special project?" I asked casually, sipping my coffee. Vanessa paused in the doorway, her back to me. "Good. Really good. Brad thinks I'm making excellent progress. I bet he does." She turned around then, studying my face for signs of suspicion. But I'd spent 20 years as an architect, learning to keep my expression neutral during client meetings and budget negotiations. I could hide my thoughts when I needed to. "You seem tense, Nick. Everything okay?" "Just tired." "Work's been stressful." She nodded and disappeared upstairs. 5 minutes later, I heard the shower running, and her voice again, talking on the phone. Even through the bathroom door and running water, I could hear the intimate tone she used to use with me. I spent the day at work designing a new office building, but my mind kept drifting to structural engineering principles. Every building needed a solid foundation, but even the strongest foundation could be undermined if you knew where to dig. Relationships work the same way. Find the weak points, apply the right pressure, and everything comes tumbling down. That afternoon, I did something I'd never done in 15 years of marriage. I went through Vanessa's things. I started with her laptop, but she'd changed the password from our anniversary date to something I couldn't guess. Her phone was password protected too, never left lying around anymore. But Vanessa had always been careless with details, and I knew her habits better than she realized. I found what I was looking for in her gym bag, a second phone, one of those cheap prepaid models you could buy at any convenience store, the kind people used when they didn't want their activities tracked. The text messages told the whole story. Brad, last night was incredible. When are you going to tell him? Vanessa, soon. I need to be strategic about this. The house, the kids, the money. It has to be handled right. Brad, I hate sneaking around. I want to be with you openly. Vanessa, I know, baby. Just a little longer. Once I have everything lined up, Nick won't be able to fight me on anything. Brad, what do you mean? Vanessa, I've been documenting everything. His drinking, his temper, how he ignores the girls. My lawyer says I can get full custody in the house if I play this right. My hands were shaking as I scrolled through more messages. Vanessa hadn't just been cheating. She'd been building a case against me, planning to destroy my life so thoroughly that I'd have nothing left. The drinking she mentioned was maybe 2 beers on weekends. The temper was me getting frustrated with traffic or work stress. The ignoring the girls was me working late to pay for the house she wanted to steal. But the worst part was how calculated it all was. This wasn't a crime of passion or a marriage that had simply fallen apart. This was a deliberate campaign to ruin me, orchestrated by the woman I'd trusted with everything. I took photos of the text messages with my own phone, then put everything back exactly as I'd found it. When Vanessa came home that evening, I was in the kitchen making dinner like nothing had changed. "You're cooking?" she asked, surprised. I hadn't made dinner in months, mainly because she'd been too busy to eat with the family most nights. "Thought I'd surprise you. The girls will be home from soccer practice soon." Vanessa looked uncomfortable, like she wasn't sure how to handle domestic normalcy anymore. "That's nice. I might have to eat and run, though. Brad and I are working on something new tonight." "Another special project?" "Yeah, exactly." She was already reaching for her secret phone, probably to text Brad about this unexpected development. During dinner, I watched Vanessa interact with Emily and Sophie, and it was like seeing a stranger wearing my wife's face. She was distracted, checking her regular phone constantly, giving half-hearted responses to the girls' stories about school. Emily noticed too. I caught her giving Vanessa the same suspicious look she'd given me that morning. After dinner, Vanessa disappeared upstairs to freshen up before her gym session. I helped the girls with homework, read Sophie a bedtime story, and listened to Emily's concerns about the upcoming science fair. Normal dad stuff that apparently qualified as ignoring them in Vanessa's twisted narrative. When Vanessa came downstairs in her workout clothes, she looked like she was dressed for a date rather than exercise. New leggings that hugged every curve, a top that showed more skin than fabric, makeup that was definitely not gym appropriate. "Don't wait up," she said, kissing my cheek with lips that had been on another man's mouth less than 24 hours ago. "Have fun with your project," I replied, and she actually smiled like she thought she was getting away with something. After she left, I called Derek. "She's planning to take me for everything," I told him, describing the text messages I'd found. "Full custody, the house, probably alimony too. She's been building a case against me for months." Derek was quiet for a long moment. Wow. That's really messed up, Nick. What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." "But she wants to play games? She's about to learn that I don't lose. Just don't do anything stupid, okay? Don't give her real ammunition to use against you." Derek was right, But as I sat in my living room, the living room I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford, in the house where I'd changed diapers and taught my daughters to ride bikes and built a life I thought mattered, I felt that cold anger crystallizing into something harder. Vanessa wanted to destroy me? Fine. But she'd made one crucial mistake in her planning. She'd underestimated me. She saw me as the boring husband, the reliable provider, the man who'd roll over and accept whatever scraps she decided to leave him. She was about to discover just how wrong she was. I spent the rest of the evening researching divorce law, custody battles, and property division in our state. I learned about documentation, evidence gathering, and legal strategy. Most importantly, I learned that Vanessa's plan had some serious flaws. The drinking she was documenting? I had credit card records showing I rarely bought alcohol. The temper she was claiming? I had years of performance reviews at work praising my calm demeanor and problem-solving skills. The ignoring my daughters? I had school records, medical appointments, and extracurricular activities that I'd handled while she was off working late. But more than that, I realized Vanessa had made a fundamental error in judgment. She thought she was the only one capable of strategy and long-term planning. She'd forgotten that I was an architect. My entire career was built on seeing the big picture, anticipating problems, and creating structures that could withstand any storm. She wanted to tear down my life. I was going to build something better from the rubble, and when I was done, she'd have nothing left but the memory of what she'd thrown away. The game was on. And unlike Vanessa, I played to win. I started documenting everything. Every late night, every gym session, every lie Vanessa told the girls about where she was going. I installed a small security camera in our garage, completely legal since it was my property, that captured her coming and going at all hours. I kept a detailed log of when she was home versus when she claimed to be working or exercising. But I also did something Vanessa hadn't expected. I became a better father. Not that I'd been a bad father before, but I'd fallen into the trap of letting Vanessa handle most of the day-to-day parenting while I focused on work. Now I made it a point to be present for everything. I helped with homework every night, attended every soccer practice, volunteered for school events. I documented all of it, but more importantly, I genuinely reconnected with Emily and Sophie. "Dad's been different lately," I overheard Emily tell her friend Madison during a sleepover. "Like, more fun. He actually listens when we talk." It was a wake-up call. In my effort to provide for my family, I'd been missing out on actually being part of it. Vanessa's betrayal was devastating, but it had also shown me what really mattered. Meanwhile, Vanessa was getting sloppier. She'd come home with Brad's cologne lingering on her clothes. She'd forget details of the lies she'd told, mixing up which client meetings she was supposedly attending. One night she came home with a hickey on her neck that she claimed was a bruise from the gym equipment. "You should be more careful," I told her, handing her an ice pack. "Those machines can be dangerous if you're not paying attention." She took the ice pack without meeting my eyes. "Yeah, I'll be more careful." But the real breakthrough came 3 weeks into my surveillance when I followed them to what I thought would be another gym session. Instead, Vanessa's car led me to a hotel on the other side of town. I watched from the parking lot as she and Brad walked into the lobby together, his hand on her back, her head on his shoulder. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. I sat in my car for 2 hours, taking photos with my phone's camera as they came and went from room 237. When they finally left, they were disheveled and grinning like teenagers who'd just discovered sex. Vanessa checked her appearance in Brad's car window, smoothing her hair and adjusting her clothes. My phone buzzed with a text from her. "Client dinner running really late. Don't wait up." I drove home and found Emily and Sophie eating cereal for dinner because Mommy had forgotten to arrange for food and Daddy was supposedly out on an errand. "Where's Mom?" Sophie asked, and I could hear the confusion in her 8-year-old voice. "She's working, sweetheart. How about I make us some real dinner?" As I cooked grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, comfort food that reminded me of my own childhood, I realized that Vanessa wasn't just betraying me. She was abandoning her daughters for a fling with a man who spent more time looking at himself in mirrors than he'd ever spend looking after kids. That night, after the girls were asleep, I made a decision. I was done being reactive. It was time to go on the offensive. I started with social media. Vanessa had always been active on Facebook and Instagram, posting carefully curated photos of our perfect family life. But lately, her posts had been different. More selfies at the gym, more photos with Brad that she tagged as workout buddies, more complaints about being unappreciated and needing positive energy in her life. I began commenting on her posts in ways that seemed supportive, but were actually designed to highlight the inconsistencies in her story. When she posted a gym selfie at 9 p.m. claiming to be grinding late, I'd comment, "So dedicated." "The girls missed you at bedtime, but I told them Mommy was working hard." When she posted photos with Brad, I'd add, "Great to see you making such good friends." Brad's practically part of the family now. The comments made her friends start asking questions. Why was she at the gym so late? Who was this Brad guy who appeared in so many photos? Where was Nick in all these pictures? Vanessa confronted me about it one morning while the girls were getting ready for school. "Your Facebook comments are embarrassing," she said, cornering me in the laundry room. "People are starting to talk." "Talk about what?" "I'm just being supportive of your fitness journey." "You're making it sound like I'm never home." "Aren't you?" I asked, folding one of Sophie's shirts with deliberate calm. "I mean, you've been working so hard lately, staying out so late. I'm proud of your dedication." Vanessa's face flushed red. "You're being passive-aggressive. I'm being honest. If that makes you uncomfortable, maybe you should ask yourself why." She stormed out of the laundry room, but I could see the wheels turning in her head. She was starting to realize that her carefully constructed narrative was developing cracks. The next phase of my plan involved Brad directly. I'd been watching him for weeks, learning his patterns and routines. Brad was a creature of habit. He worked out at his own gym every morning at 6 a.m., grabbed coffee at the same cafe, and spent his afternoons training clients who paid premium rates to exercise with someone who looked like a fitness magazine cover. Model. But Brad had a weakness: his ego. He couldn't resist showing off, especially when he thought he had an audience. I started showing up at his cafe, sitting at a table where he could see me but acting like I hadn't noticed him. I'd be reading a book or working on my laptop, just another customer minding his own business. But I could feel him watching me, trying to figure out if I knew about him and Vanessa. After a week of this, Brad finally approached me. "Nick, right? Vanessa's husband?" I looked up from my laptop with what I hoped was a friendly smile. "Brad, good to see you. Vanessa talks about you all the time." He sat down without being invited, his expression a mix of guilt and bravado. "She's an amazing woman. You're lucky to have her." "I am," I agreed. "She's been so happy lately, so energetic. Whatever you're doing in those training sessions is really working." Brad's smile faltered slightly. "Yeah, we've been working hard." "She comes home absolutely glowing some nights, exhausted, but glowing. You must be a really good trainer." Now Brad looked uncomfortable. He was trying to figure out if I was genuinely clueless or if I was playing with him. The truth was, I was enjoying watching him squirm. "Well, I should get going," he said, standing up abruptly. "Of course. Don't let me keep you. I'm sure you have important projects to work on." The way I emphasized projects made Brad's face go pale. He mumbled something about being late for a client and practically fled the cafe. That afternoon, I got a series of frantic texts from Vanessa. "Did you talk to Brad today? What did you say to him? He's acting weird and won't tell me why. Call me back now." I waited 3 hours before responding. Ran into Brad at the cafe. Nice guy. Seemed a little nervous about something, though. "Everything okay?" She didn't respond, But that evening, she came home early for the first time in weeks. She was agitated, pacing around the house, checking her phones constantly. During dinner, she barely spoke to the girls, lost in whatever crisis she and Brad were trying to navigate. "Mom, are you okay?" Emily asked. "You seem upset." "I'm fine, sweetie. Just work stress." But Emily was too smart to buy that explanation, and I could see her filing away another piece of evidence that something was wrong with her mother. After the girls went to bed, Vanessa cornered me in our bedroom. "What did you really say to Brad today?" "I told you, we just chatted." "Why are you so worried about it?" "I'm not worried. I just don't understand why you were talking to him." "He's your friend, isn't he?" I was being friendly. Vanessa studied my face, looking for signs of deception. But I'd been practicing this expression in the mirror for weeks. Open, honest, slightly confused by her reaction. "You've been acting strange lately," she said finally. "Strange how?" "I don't know. Different. Like you're planning something." I laughed, and it sounded genuine even to me. "Planning what?" "Vanessa, I think you're under too much stress. Maybe you should take a break from all these late-night gym sessions." She didn't have an answer for that, but I could see the paranoia taking root. She was starting to wonder if I knew more than I was letting on, but she couldn't figure out how much or what I planned to do about it. The truth was, I was just getting started. Vanessa and Brad thought they were playing chess while I was playing checkers. They were about to learn that I'd been playing chess all along, and I was already 3 moves ahead of them. The breaking point came on a Saturday morning in late October. Vanessa announced she was going to a fitness seminar with Brad that would last all weekend. She'd be staying at a hotel near the convention center, she said, and wouldn't be back until Sunday night. "A whole weekend?" Emily asked, looking up from her cereal. "But what about my soccer game?" Vanessa barely glanced at her daughter. "Daddy can take you. This seminar is really important for my career." "I thought you worked in tech sales," Sophie said with 8-year-old logic. "Why do you need a fitness seminar?" "It's cross-training. You wouldn't understand." But the girls did understand, at least on some level. I could see it in the way they looked at their mother, confused, hurt, and starting to pull away from her emotional absence. After Vanessa left with an overnight bag that was definitely packed for romance rather than education, I made a decision. It was time to stop playing defense. I called Derek and asked him to watch the girls for a few hours. Then I drove to the hotel where Vanessa claimed to be attending her seminar. There was no fitness convention. The hotel was hosting a wedding and a corporate retreat for an insurance company, but nothing related to health or wellness. I asked the desk clerk if they had any guests named Vanessa Caldwell or Bradley Thomas. They couldn't give me room numbers, but they confirmed both names were registered, in the same room. My wife had lied to our daughters about a work seminar so she could spend the weekend in a hotel room with her personal trainer boyfriend. The sheer audacity of it was breathtaking. I drove home and spent the afternoon with Emily and Sophie, taking them to lunch and a movie, helping with homework, being the parent who actually showed up. But inside, I was planning. That evening, after the girls were asleep, I made a series of phone calls. First, I called my lawyer, not for a consultation, but to have him ready for what was coming. Then I called my brother Mike, who lived 2 hours away but had always said he'd help if I needed anything. Finally, I called Mrs. Flannery, our 70-year-old neighbor who knew everything that happened on our street and had never met a piece of gossip she couldn't improve with creative embellishment. "Mrs. Flannery, I need a favor," I said, "and I think you're going to enjoy it." Sunday morning, I put my plan into action. I started by gathering every piece of evidence I'd collected over the past month. Photos, text messages, hotel receipts I'd found in Vanessa's car, credit card statements showing charges at restaurants and stores when she claimed to be at the gym. I organized it all into a neat folder labeled Vanessa's Special Projects. Then I did something that would have seemed impossible 6 weeks earlier. I packed all of Vanessa's belongings. Not just her clothes, though I did box up every outfit she'd bought for her affair, every piece of lingerie she'd hidden from me, every item that smelled like Brad's cologne. I also gathered her books, her decorations, her personal photos, her expensive skincare products, everything that made our house her home, too. Emily and Sophie watched from the stairs as I carried box after box out to the front lawn. "Dad, what are you doing?" Emily asked, and I could hear the worry in her voice. "Mom's going to be moving out soon," I said gently. "I thought I'd help her get organized." "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. I could lie, try to protect them from the truth a little longer. But Emily was too smart, and they'd both been watching their mother disappear for months. "Yeah, sweetheart, we are." Sophie started crying, and Emily wrapped her arms around her little sister. "Is it because of Uncle Brad?" "It's because your mother made some choices that hurt our family. But you and Sophie are the most important things in the world to me, and that's never going to change." By noon, our front lawn looked like a yard sale explosion. Vanessa's entire life was displayed in cardboard boxes and plastic bags, organized by category. I'd even made little signs: work clothes, gym outfits, special occasion dresses, and my personal favorite, secret phone collection. Mrs. Flannery had done her part, spreading word through the neighborhood that something dramatic was happening at the Caldwell house. By 12:30, we had an audience of curious neighbors pretending to walk their dogs or check their mailboxes while actually watching the show. Derek arrived at 1 p.m. with a pickup truck and a grim smile. "You sure about this, buddy?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." At 1:15, I called Vanessa. "Nick, what's wrong? You never call when I'm at conferences." "Your stuff is on the front lawn," I said calmly. "You might want to come get it before it rains." There was a long silence. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that there's no fitness seminar, Vanessa. There's no conference. There's just you and Brad in room 237 at the Marriott, and me finally done pretending I don't know about it." Another silence, longer this time. When she spoke again, her voice was shaking. "Nick, I can explain." "No need. Your text messages explained everything, especially the ones about taking the house and the kids and destroying my reputation. That was really thoughtful planning." "How did you—" "The secret phone, Vanessa. You might want to be more careful where you leave it." I could hear her crying now, but it sounded more like panic than remorse. "Nick, please, we can work this out. We can go to counseling." "The time for counseling was before you started screwing another man and plotting to ruin my life. Your belongings will be on the lawn until 6 p.m. After that, they go to Goodwill." I hung up and turned off my phone. Whatever Vanessa's response was going to be, I didn't want to hear it in front of the girls. Emily and Sophie were sitting on the front porch, watching the neighborhood spectacle with the fascination of kids who'd never seen their boring suburban street become the center of drama. "Is Mom coming home?" Sophie asked. "She's coming to get her things. But no, sweetheart, she's not coming home." "Good," Emily said fiercely. "She's been mean to you, and she doesn't play with us anymore, and she lies about where she goes." Out of the mouths of babes. My 12-year-old daughter had seen what I'd been trying to ignore for months. At 3 p.m., Vanessa's car screeched into our driveway. She jumped out like her hair was on fire, took one look at the lawn full of her possessions and the crowd of neighbors, and started screaming. "You can't do this! This is harassment! I'm calling the police!" "Go ahead," I said calmly from the porch. "I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing about your hotel receipts and your secret phone." Brad climbed out of the passenger seat, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. He was wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap, trying to hide from the neighbors who were now openly staring and taking photos with their phones. "Nick, man, we should talk about this privately," he said, approaching the porch with his hands up like he was surrendering. "I think we're past privacy, Brad. Besides, I thought you wanted to be with Vanessa openly. Well, here's your chance." Vanessa was frantically shoving clothes back into boxes, her face red with embarrassment and rage. "You're going to regret this, Nick. My lawyer is going to destroy you in court." "Your lawyer might want to see these first," I said, holding up the folder of evidence. "Turns out adultery and abandonment don't look great in custody hearings. Who knew?" "Mrs." Flannery chose that moment to walk over with a plate of cookies, as if this was a block party instead of a marriage imploding in real time. "Vanessa, dear, I brought snacks for your moving day. Such an exciting time for you." The look on Vanessa's face was priceless. She was being humiliated in front of the entire neighborhood by a 70-year-old woman with a cookie plate and a smile that could cut glass. It took Vanessa and Brad 2 hours to load everything into his truck and her car. The whole time, neighbors found excuses to be outside, walking dogs, watering plants, or just sitting on their porches enjoying the entertainment. As they finished loading the last box, Vanessa walked over to where I was sitting with the girls. "This isn't over, Nick." "Yes, it is," I replied. "You made your choice when you decided to cheat and lie and plan to destroy me. Now you get to live with the consequences. The girls need their mother. The girls need a mother who puts them first. You can see them on weekends, assuming you can fit them into your schedule between gym sessions." Vanessa looked at Emily and Sophie, and for a moment I thought she might actually show some remorse, some recognition of what she was throwing away. But then Brad honked his horn, impatient to escape the neighborhood spotlight, and whatever maternal instinct had flickered in her eyes died out. "I'll see you in court," she said, and stalked back to her car. As they drove away, Mrs. Flannery patted my shoulder. "You did the right thing, dear. That woman was no good for you or those precious girls." Emily and Sophie came over and sat on either side of me on the porch steps. We watched the sunset over our quiet suburban street, now returned to normal after the afternoon's drama. "Dad?" Sophie said. "Are we going to be okay?" I put my arms around both my daughters and felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Peace. "Yeah, sweetheart. We're going to be better than okay." And for the first time since this whole nightmare started, I actually believed it. The divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. Vanessa's lawyer had clearly expected to steamroll me with her carefully documented accusations of neglect and emotional abuse. What he hadn't expected was my own documentation, months of evidence showing Vanessa's abandonment of her children, her affair, and her fraudulent claims about my behavior. The judge was particularly unimpressed with Vanessa's argument that she deserved full custody, while simultaneously admitting she'd been spending most nights away from home for fitness training. "Mrs. Caldwell," Judge Martinez said during our final hearing, "you're asking for primary custody of children you've barely seen in the past 6 months. Can you explain how this serves their best interests?" Vanessa's lawyer whispered frantically in her ear, but she ignored him. "Your Honor, I was working on improving myself. I was getting healthy and strong so I could be a better mother. By having an affair and planning to defraud your husband of his assets?" The courtroom was silent except for the sound of Vanessa's lawyer shuffling papers and probably updating his résumé. In the end, I got primary custody with Vanessa receiving supervised visitation every other weekend. She got her car and her personal belongings. I kept the house, my retirement accounts, and most importantly, my daughters. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in the months that followed. Emily and Sophie thrived without the tension and uncertainty that had filled our house during Vanessa's affair. Emily's grades improved, Sophie stopped having nightmares, and both girls seemed lighter somehow, like they'd been carrying a weight they were too young to understand. We developed new routines. Saturday morning pancakes became a tradition. I learned to braid Sophie's hair for dance recitals. Emily and I started working on science fair projects together, and she discovered she had inherited my love of building things. Derek became a regular fixture at our dinner table, bringing his girlfriend Lisa and her 2 kids for chaotic family meals that were nothing like the tense, quiet dinners we'd endured with Vanessa. "You know what I like about this?" Lisa said one evening as we watched 5 kids ranging from 8 to 15 argue over a board game. "It feels real." She was right. Our house felt like a home again, filled with actual life instead of carefully curated performances. Vanessa's visits with the girls were sporadic at first. She'd show up late, leave early, and spend most of the time on her phone or talking about herself. Emily and Sophie were polite but distant, treating her more like an acquaintance than their mother. She asks us about school but doesn't listen to the answers, Emily told me after one particularly awkward visit. And she keeps talking about Uncle Brad like we want to hear about him. Do you want to hear about him? No. He's weird, and he smells like too much cologne. Plus, he broke up our family. I was careful not to badmouth Vanessa in front of the girls, but I didn't need to. They could see for themselves who had been there for bedtime stories and homework help and soccer games, and who had been too busy with special projects to notice her own children growing up. The neighborhood gossip mill eventually moved on to other scandals, but not before ensuring that everyone within a 5-mile radius knew the story of Vanessa's affair and my front yard revenge. I became something of a local legend, the quiet guy who'd finally had enough and fought back with style. Mrs. Flannery still brought up the moving day whenever she had new neighbors to scandalize. You should have seen it, she'd tell anyone who'd listen. Boxes everywhere, that woman screaming like a banshee, and Nick just sitting there calm as you please with his beautiful daughters. It was better than cable TV. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Brad at a coffee shop downtown. He was with a different woman this time, a blonde who looked exactly like Vanessa but 10 years younger. Some people never learn. He saw me before he could escape and walked over with that same guilty expression he'd worn the day I'd cornered him at his usual cafe. Nick. Hey. How are you doing? Great, actually. Really great. How's Vanessa? Brad's face fell. We're taking a break. She's been really stressed since the divorce. I'm sure she has. Losing your meal ticket and your kids in one fell swoop would be stressful for anyone. Look, man, I know you hate me, but I want you to know I never meant for things to happen the way they did. I studied his face. Still handsome. Still perfectly groomed, but there was something desperate around the edges now. Brad, I don't hate you. I actually owe you a debt of gratitude. What? You showed me who my wife really was. Better to find out after 15 years than after 25, right? Brad looked confused, like he'd expected anger or threats and didn't know how to handle gratitude. Besides, I continued, you saved me from wasting any more time on someone who was never going to put our family first. Now I get to focus on the people who actually matter. I left him standing there with his mouth open and his new girlfriend looking between us like she was trying to solve a puzzle. The truth was, I didn't hate Brad or even Vanessa anymore. Anger was exhausting, and I had better things to do with my energy, like teaching Sophie to ride her bike without training wheels, or helping Emily with her application to the advanced math program, or planning our summer vacation to Yellowstone. A year after the divorce, I was cleaning out the garage when I found a box of old photo albums, pictures of Vanessa and me on our honeymoon, at Emily's birth, at Sophie's first birthday party. There was a time when those photos would have hurt to look at, but now they just seemed like artifacts from someone else's life. Emily found me looking through them and sat down beside me on the garage floor. Do you miss her? She asked. It was a fair question, and she deserved an honest answer. I miss who I thought she was, I said finally, but the person in these pictures wasn't real. She was just playing a part until she got tired of the show. I don't miss her, Emily said matter-of-factly. I mean, I love her because she's my mom, but I don't miss living with her. Does that make me a bad person? No, sweetheart. It makes you honest. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, looking through pictures of a family that had never really existed the way I'd thought it did. Dad? Emily said eventually. Yeah? I'm glad you fought back. A lot of kids at school, their parents just get divorced and everyone's miserable and angry all the time, but you made it, I don't know, fair, I guess. Fair, it was a good word for what I'd tried to do. Not cruel, not vindictive, just fair. Vanessa had made choices, and those choices had consequences. I'd simply made sure the consequences landed where they belonged instead of on me and the girls. That evening, after Sophie was asleep and Emily was reading in her room, I sat on my back porch with a beer and looked out at the yard where my daughters played every day. The grass was greener than it had been in years. The flower beds were full of plants I'd chosen instead of ones Vanessa had picked for their Instagram potential. And there was a swing set Derek and I had built together last spring. It wasn't the life I'd planned when I married Vanessa 15 years ago, but it was a good life. An honest life. A life where people showed up for each other and nobody had to wonder if they were being lied to or manipulated or slowly undermined by someone who was supposed to love them. My phone buzzed with a text from Derek. Poker night tomorrow? Lisa's making her famous chili. I typed back, wouldn't miss it, and I wouldn't. Because this was my life now, full of people who kept their promises, who showed up when they said they would, who didn't have secret phones or hidden agendas or elaborate plans to destroy the people who trusted them. As I finished my beer and headed inside to lock up for the night, I thought about Vanessa one more time. She was probably somewhere with another Brad, or maybe back with the original Brad, planning her next move and looking for her next victim. Some people were builders, and some people were wreckers. I'd finally learned the difference. I checked on both girls, Emily reading under her covers with a flashlight, Sophie sprawled across her bed with her favorite stuffed animal, and felt that familiar surge of fierce protectiveness. They were mine to protect and guide and love, and I'd never again let anyone hurt them the way their mother had. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new adventures, new opportunities to build something better. But tonight, in my house full of people who actually wanted to be there, I was exactly where I belonged. And that was worth more than any revenge I could have planned.